Welcome back to our discussion on capital budgeting NPV project. Now, in the previous one, we discussed that the interest rate, discounting rate will affect the net present value of projects. Using a higher rate will reduce it. Using a lower rate will increase the net present value, and using a higher rate will reduce the net. To understand what are the sensitivity and what is the impact of different rates, we normally prepare an NPV profile of project. So NPV profile of the projects looks like this. So NPV, in this NPV profile, you will see the internal net present value at different rates. So in panel A, you will see discount rate and the net present value at those different discounting rates. And in panel B, you will see the graphical representation of this. So if our cost of capital is at 10%, you will see that the net present value is still under positive, which is the green area. At some point, our net present value will become zero, which is at 14%. Here you will see it at 14%, our net present value is exactly zero. And above 14, if we are using a discount rate of above 14%, normally our net present value will become negative. In this case, we will reject the project. Now, the very important reference point here is IRR, which is here, at which the net present value becomes zero. This is a very simple explanation of how an IRR is calculated. And then IRR will help to understand what is the sensitivity of the project. If IRR and net present value is very close, this project is pretty risky. If they are a bit far from each other, then normally there is a higher sensitivity of different cost of capitals in the project. NPV profile depends on the cost of capital, and it will help them to understand. It help us to understand what is the net present value at different discounting rates. Usually, when we are thinking of projects, we have to think about sensitivity. Since we are not 100% sure on the cost of capital, because the cost of capital will again depend on the risk involved, depend on the country, depend on the cost of capital, depend on the return that is expected by the shareholders, and the risk inside the project itself. It's better to understand what is the IRR. So IRR, as we said earlier, if it's very close to the net present value or your cost of capital, it's pretty risky, because in that case, the slightly increase in the discounting factor may make the project unviable. So you have to calculate both NPV and IRR. However, usually whenever there is a conflict in NPV and IRR, you normally there are other alternative methods of calculating the payback, calculating the investment decisions that we are going to learn in the coming slides. Normally we have to follow the NPV method, because NPV method has lesser complications compared to the other investment decision rules. What are those additional investment decisions? We're going to learn that in the next video.